Right, dearest two men, thank you for the advice on my hair. I really enjoyed the heartfelt advice. So this was the listener that they were saying that he looked like the M logo from McDonald's.
Oh yeah.
Jamie's killing himself now. It's alright, Jamie, in a couple of years that'd be you, wouldn't it?
Mate, I'll be there with you on the plane to Turkey, mate.
I hope you had a good weekend, a bank holiday. Don't know what that is, never exists. I had an interview for a job I really wanted today, and it went disastrously wrong, I feel. It was an online Zoom interview, and as I sat in the interview with my dog continuing to bark for about 45% of it, because I locked him out of the bedroom, my notes for the presentation was on the iPad, which ran out of battery midway through the interview.
God.
So I had to panic to find a charger while not showing what was going on and delaying it. To finish it off, because I was flustered, I essentially said, I'm happy to get my team in trouble if they're not doing what I ask, which dropped like a lead balloon, and I really didn't mean it the way it came across. The cherry on the cake, just as I was saying goodbye, the nerves had totally taken over, and I said, thank fuck that's over, without actually signing off, and I heard one of the interviewers laugh as they logged off. I'd be lucky, man, if I get a rejection letter. Have you guys ever had a job interview go so badly? Any advice for a stupid interviewee? I honestly thought he was going to say, it's like, oh, and then I stood up to find the charger and they could see that I was just in my boxes down below.
That's where I was thinking it was going. When you were saying it, I was like, that's where it's going. But
I know one of my mates did that. He was like, he had like a suit shirt and everything on top, and he had like his pajama bottoms on the bottom.
That's what Ben said he did during our episode, didn't
it? Brilliant. I'm pretty good at interviews.
Yeah, I remember you saying that you're good at blagging it.
I can smash them out the park. Yeah. I know what they want. It's just when I get there, I just can't perform it. Good interviewee, bad employee. I think it's a good. Oh, that's good T-shirt merch.
Little catchphrase.
Trademarked. Yeah, trademarked. No one can use that. I think that's difficult, right? Because obviously it's easier now to do the Zoom interviews, which makes you half lazy because it's half the preparation, right? But then you have your dog, or you have like a baby, or like the house phone could go, or you don't know what police car could go past the fucking window and you can't hear them for the next 5 minutes.
Yeah. The dog's obviously, as people have heard in the podcast, the dog is uncontrollable. So the only thing, if he whines when you leave him out of the room, just maybe leave him in the room with you, as long as he's not sitting on top of you and that he's sitting quietly at your feet. Because Rocco's at my feet now. Do you know what I mean? You wouldn't know he's there. Mm-hmm. But if he's going to be jumping all over you, then it's a different matter. But as regards to bad, I think there's been 2 interviews that went pretty bad for me. There was one where I was going for like a step up in a role, and everything they were saying, I come across as an arrogant dickhead. I was just like, oh yeah, I'm confident in my ability to manage people, I just kept like going down that line, and because I was so nervous about the presentation, it fucked my whole like question part of it up, because they did that first.
Right.
If they'd done the presentation first and I got that out of the way, and then I did the questions after, I think it would have been a totally different interview. But on the lead up, I was just like, yeah, and there was like, oh, so there'll be a lot of older people, and you're quite young. There'll be a lot of older people in charge. How would you go about speaking to so and so, like one of the guys that I already knew on the shop floor? I was like, well, if you don't do it, then I'll just take him down to the HR department. Just making myself sound like a dick.
Take him back to the side and berate him until he does what I say.
Yeah, just start pummeling him until he's fucking listening. And that went pretty bad, just out of pure... I made myself come across like a dick when I was actually not trying to do it that way. And then when I was really young, I think I've brought this one up before, where it was results day for school. All I was interested in is going and seeing girls and getting drunk. And Mum got me an interview down in Hightown for an electrician's firm's apprentice.
Right.
Which, if it was one of them moments like we talked about in the last episode with Jim, where if you could shake your younger self and just be like, fucking fix up for a minute and just go and do this interview, you would. Because it was like, I went down, it was these two guys that were like proper old school electricians who would have took me on like that if I said the right things to him. And he was just talking and talking and talking, and I'm just thinking, I'm going to get this cider from this shop, this cider from that shop. I'm going to buy these cigarettes. We've got a bag of weed, or my mate's got a bag of weed now. All this stuff like for the party for results day. And he just goes, "Am I boring you?" And I just goes, "Yes," like that, really, really assertively. And he goes, "I think that's the interview over, don't you?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then he goes, "Have you got any questions?" And I was like, "No, not really. Thank you." And then they just got up and walked out. I was just like, "Mate, what the fuck are you doing?" I look back on that day, I'm just if I walked into that corridor and I could beat myself up, I would do it.
I'm quite an old school, like I remember all the tips they taught you and stuff. So I always get thrown off. I went for a job as a estate agent when I got made redundant, and she goes to me like, "What are your weaknesses?" And back in the day, they always say you've got to be positive. You never got to speak negatively about yourself. So she's like, so I've got everything else prepared, and she goes, "What's a weakness?" And I'm like, "What?" And she's looking at me, and she goes, "Oh, have you got any weaknesses?" And then to me, I'm like, I can't just say no. 'Cause that made me look a dick. Like I'm the most perfect employee, and I was like, so I just said the stupidest thing. I was like, I get fixated on things, and I can't do another task. So sometimes I get behind, and I'm like, that's the worst thing you could say for an estate agent. I get
fixated on one
everything.
client.
Yeah, on one thing, yeah, and I can't move on. And so she was like, "Okay," never heard from them again. And then as well, another rule that they always said to you is like, obviously, you turn your phone off. You never get your phone out during an interview.
Yeah.
So I went for a job interview at O2, and you have to basically sit there with the guy, and you have to pretend to try and get him a phone plan. And they give you a list of like phones. And I was at the end of the interview, because it was a shit show, I was like, "Oh, it's really hard to do that without having the phones in front of you." And he was like, "Well, you've got a phone on you." And I'm like, "I would never take my phone at an interview. Like, you should never do that." And he just looked at me like I was talking. And I think I should have. It's a phone shop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then on the other hand, I'm like, I'm trying to be professional.
Yeah, it's
like,
hard. In hindsight, it's always a bit different, isn't it?
Yeah, like I'm not going to be on the shop floor talking to a guy, and then people do, and they pull my phone out in front of him. But then I don't know, it's a different world, and I've never fucking horseshit. But anyway, like, I mean, you've now made all these mistakes. You now know to get your dog out of the house, to charge your tablet, and to make sure you signed off before you say anything.
And I know from personal experience as well, being the interviewer, doing the interview, conducting the interview myself, that person doing the interview with you, 95% of the time does not want to be doing that interview either. Like, no. You're probably the lowest on their jobs of lists to do that day. And on top of that, they'll be nervous about you having to spend an hour with a stranger who potentially could be part of the firm in the future. And yeah. I don't think I conducted probably, 20, 30 different interviews and never got easier. It's one of the lads, I could tell that he was like me when I was being interviewed. He was that nervous. I was like, "You're nervous, aren't you?" He was like, "Yeah." I said, I coached him through every single fucking answer. I took him on, and he was one of the better guys that worked for me.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think you got, like, you say all these things are bad and stuff like that, but most people understand if you got a dog that's barking. Most people understand if, like, you say things like, because obviously it's so stressful with that whole, like, thank fuck that's over.
Yeah.
Everyone's thinking that when they have an interview, and you've just said it, which is why that person laughed.
Yeah. I would have found that hilarious.
Yeah, because they're probably as well like, Yeah, I absolutely imagine that as well. I mean, people have been hired for worse interviews. I mean, those are a few hiccups, but they're not. It's not like you swore at them or anything like that. They're just
Yeah.
problems of the day, aren't they?
You never know. This guy could get a second interview.
Yeah.
You never
I'd
know.
give him a second interview.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I was the interviewer, I'd be like, "What kind of dog have you got?"
I'll be like, show me him.
Yeah. I'll be like, "Show me the dog. Show me the dog." I don't give a fuck what I'm interviewing for, because at the end of the day, yes, it's good to have experience and know the job and stuff like that, but they're hiring the person.
Yeah.
So you just have a conversation with them, didn't you? Like, you find out the person. If you were talking to them and they're a dick, it doesn't matter how fucking good you are, they're going to be like, nah, fuck off.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And there is a difference between confidence and being cocky, and that can come across as well. So I think if you're showing the genuine side of yourself, that will show.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for definitely. So, don't beat yourself up about it. Just pick yourself up and get on. You never know. They might contact you.